Hello.
Okay, so welcome to Take a Bite Out of Science, everybody. Today our topic is Raptor Rehab. This presentation will run for about 20 minutes and then we'll save the last 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout, please put them in the chat. So we are able to offer this programming for free with support from ZAP for those of you that are local to Salt Lake County and with additional support from donors like you. So with that, since we have a short presentation today, I'm going to turn the mic over to our speaker today, Buz Marthaler, Chairman and co-founder of Wildlife Rehabilitation Center of Northern Utah.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here, and we're gonna just hit some general rehabilitation aspects. This is our mission statement where we tie rehabilitation directly into education. We'll talk more about that, but it's to get people engaged in our wildlife and habitat and what those animals that are surrounding us and in our backyards. Raptor rehabilitation really isn't a lot different than any other rehabilitation, and we do about 3,800 animals a year. 96% of them are avian, and of course a smaller group of those are raptors. I think the most important question is why rehabilitation? Rehabilitation by some standards is a waste of money and time. We do not believe that's the case, and we'll talk more about that. Connecting rehabilitation to education is our primary function so that we can educate the public. Rehabbers on the front lines, and then we have a short bald eagle release that I think you'll all enjoy at the very end. So why rehabilitation? Probably the most important thing is that over 80% of the animals that come to us are human impact, meaning it was not nature taking its course, and therefore we do not like to use that comment or that statement, let nature take its course, because humans probably had some part in the injury that we see, and we feel that in that case it's our duty to try and fix that problem. And so we rehabilitate injured, sick, and orphaned wildlife. Does it affect the population of the species? If you look at this beautiful murmuration of phalaropes over the Great Salt Lake, you look at it and you think about an impact to anything but that individual. And so we really wouldn't notice much there. But I can also bring to call passenger pigeons. Back several hundred years ago, we estimate there were 2 to 5 billion, and now they're extinct. Individuals falling out, and the amount of time over a period of time does have a huge effect, even on a very large population like that. Here's 2 species that were on the brink of extinction. And so an individual does make a difference in their rehabilitation and their ability to be able to survive out in the wild. Specialized rehabilitation programs brought both these individuals or individual species back from the brink of extinction, and it was a huge success. This peregrine falcon on the right there is actually now housed at Hawkwatch. That's while she was in our care, and that's another reason for rehabilitation. Without rehabilitation, none of the native species that you see as education ambassadors would be available. That's by law. And again, we have 2 raptor species here, a Sharpie and a golden. They're at the high end of the food chain, smaller populations. So individuals being removed or added to these populations actually probably has some impact, positive or negative, depending upon which direction they're going. Then you take something like the more common robin here, and where raptors nest once a year, small numbers of eggs typically. These robins will build a nest, they'll lay 4 eggs, while in those 4 are hatched and out of the nest, dad's taking care of them and mom's laying 4 more eggs, and they will have 2 to 3 clutches a year. So an individual robin probably does not have the same impact to their population as to any of these smaller population species such as raptors. Is the individual patient important? If we could speak their language and we could explain to them what the goal is to get them back out in the wild, I think most of them would agree, but we'll never know that answer. But it is very important to the individual that brought that patient in. Suddenly, this could be the first time that they've ever touched a wild animal, that they've actually gotten involved in an injury that they're concerned about, they're stressed out, care of, and that it has a good prognosis, and they become very interested in what it is. Half the time they don't even know what it is they have in the box. We get baby eagles that turn out to be kestrels and things like that in the middle of winter, and we all chuckle and try to guess what we're going to see come through the door. But these people are genuinely interested in what's going on. And it opens the door to the education side of it. And we start getting all the questions and we answer all of them and try to get them excited about this animal and other animals in their yards. And this is where we come into human impact. Human impact is probably the most important aspect of our education program because we think it's the one area where we humans have some control and we can bring down some of the impact just by knowing what they are, what causes them, maybe some fixes, remedies on how to prevent certain injuries, or just to be on the lookout for them so we can protect these animals before they actually come in contact with all of the human obstacles we've placed out there. Human impact comes in direct and indirect modes, and indirect is probably the most important. Window collisions is high on the list. Roaming pets, especially cats, are second to that. Vehicle collisions. These animals do not know that the reflection on a window, the clouds and the blue sky and the trees are windows. They don't realize it's a hard surface, and we get a lot of window collisions. This time of year, spring, we are getting ready to take care of our yards and green them up and make them pretty. And all those toxins that we put on our yards to make them green and unnaturally pretty causes huge issues. People spraying insecticides on their fruit trees and things like that, killing the bugs or poisoning the bugs, which then get stuck down the baby's throats. Robins pulling up worms out of a freshly fertilized lawn and shoving it down babies' throats. These have a huge impact on these, especially on the babies, as their neurological systems are developing, and it's usually a death sentence for them. So these are things that we have some control over. My yard, I stopped using toxins altogether 2007 once I saw it firsthand and saw what these babies were going through. But anything you can do to lessen and reduce the amount of impact that we have is a good thing. Outdoor glue traps and snap traps, we'll talk a little more on that later, but neither one of those belong outdoors. They need to be targeted towards whatever species you're going after, and when you put something outdoors, anything, including pets and kids, can get into these things, and we see a lot of unfortunate victims that were not the intended victims for these traps. Electrocution has to do with our utilities and our way of life, and of course, if we can save energy, reduce the amount of electricity that we need and require, that means less infrastructure, which means less obstacles for these animals. And so there's just little things like that. We're not going to remove all of these, but we can reduce things and make it better. Of course, fences, barbed wire is the worst, but chain link and regular slat wooden fences are also a problem for animals. And then we have direct. This is where somebody intends to harm wildlife. Usually it's illegal poaching. And this could be in your backyard with your child with a BB gun, or somebody using blow darts or paint guns, and they're just out trying to hit stuff. And we get it a lot, quite a bit. And we of course have to report anything that we suspect is an illegal, purposeful harming of native wildlife. Again, if you don't have a license and it's not hunting season and you're not in a hunting area, it's illegal, it's poaching. And so is the trapping the same way. If it's not legal trapping, it's actually illegal. Kidnapping of animals is huge. People pull animals out of nests and burrows because they think it'd be cool to have a pet. They think it's fun. Some of them don't realize it's illegal. Others don't care. And that leads to the last item, human imprinting, which these babies become imprinted on humans. And once that's happened, you cannot fix it. You cannot release an imprinted animal back out in the wild. Not by law. It's against the law. And there's good reason for it. They just cannot properly relate to their own species out there anymore. They are linked forever to humans, either in a good way or sometimes in a bad way. They can be very dangerous to humans when left on their own. Here's lead poisoning, both direct and indirect. This bald eagle on the left is currently in our care right now. She had such a high lead level that our analyzer just said high lead. It usually gives us a value. In this case, it could not read the value. She's been on, I want to say, at least 5 regiments, 5-day regiments of chelation, and her levels are coming down where they're actually reading now, but she's still in serious condition, and we're not sure what the outcome will be even once we get all the lead leached out of her bones and out of her blood system. But we have hope. She at the very least, she should still make a good education bird, but whether or not she'll have had too much damage from the lead at the end of this is unknown. A direct lead is this picture here with the X-ray, and this is a juvenile bald eagle that came in last year, and based on this picture, you can see that arrow. That is the path of a 22 slug that someone saw this bird perched. It was obviously wings folded, just sitting there, and it went through the shoulder and into the neck. It went through the clavicle of the collar there and broke the bone. And by the time this bird got to us, it was a pretty old wound. It was well infected into the bone. It had several surgeries trying to clean it up and get it taken care of. Lots of antibiotics, but in the end, we realized that it was just too late, and we weren't going to be able to control the infection. So we lost her after just a bit. You're a fly fisherman or any kind of fisherman, and you hook that tree behind you or the one across the way, and there's not much you can do. And so the line's left there with a hook on the end of it. This screech owl flies through during the night and gets hooked on the line, and that pulls the hook into the wing, and now she's hanging from a tree, and she can't get away, and she's just exhausted. And luckily somebody found her, was able to cut her down, and again, luckily, the injury was so minor that after about a month, she was able to regain herself and be released back into the wild. But this, again, human impact, our trash, even unintentional trash like this, it just causes major harm. Rehabilitation, in case I didn't say, is really sad, people. It's really hard to deal with. It is not cute and cuddly. We see too much of the negative impacts, and so it really hurts. This picture on the left, that is a juvenile osprey that had never left the nest because it could not leave the nest. Ospreys seem to be mesmerized by baling twine that they find all over the farmers' fields out there after a bale of hay has been opened up for livestock or whatever. And for whatever reason, whether this stuff's blowing out of trucks that's intended to go to a trash or not, it needs to be burned. It needs to be taken care of and not left around. You go out to any nest, osprey nest here in this region, odds are you're going to see baling twine in that nesting material. And we see this every year. These babies hatch out, they're small, they start moving around, and they slowly hit twists and twists and twists until they become captive to it. And this one here went all the way to the bone and went through the tendons, and the foot was dead. So there was nothing we could do for that bird. And then we have someone out here in the yard putting traps out in the yard, probably for mice and rats and things. And for whatever reason, this kestrel thought it should go down and check it out. And how it did not break its leg, because this was a hefty trap. It was just a lucky angle, I guess. But he survived the swelling and pain. Couldn't use, but then later he was able to and able to release him successfully. But these kind of traps outdoors, they do not target specific individuals. They target anything that's out there. If you're going to use glue or snap traps, they're intended for enclosed areas like your garage, your basement, where you actually have an issue down there. And I'm telling you, even indoors, glue traps are the most inhumane trap around. They don't kill the animal, and they suffer and they die. So I recommend not using glue traps ever, including the ones we hang outside for bugs and things, because we've had chickadees and bats and all kinds of animals stuck in those. And it really doesn't reduce the population of your bugs around your house. It's just a facade. And then, of course, we have fences. And this long-eared owl, this long-eared owl is in the same predicament as one of Hawkwatch's short-eared owls that came to us also due to a barbed wire fence. Their bird, we were not able to get it well enough to go back out into the wild. It was had too severe of an injury. This one here, luckily, had a lot of holes in it from its own talons as it was struggling, as well as the barbed wire, but nothing major. And it came in on April 1st, and within 3 weeks, it was there's a picture of it flying off into the Bear River Refuge. So that was a good one. It was very feisty. He was a male, and we're pretty certain he had a mate out there, and he really wanted to leave our facility. So he was happy on that day. West Nile, let's see, front lines. West Nile virus was located in North America back in '99 on the East Coast. While rehabbers were seeing corvids dropping out of the sky from something they could not identify, months later, humans started coming down with West Nile virus, and once they realized what it was, it took a while for them to link the two, but then they realized that, yeah, the rehabbers have been complaining about this for some time. They just didn't know what it was. So we do see a lot of zoonotic type diseases that can affect humans. The avian flu, which is out there right now, affects humans as far as it has crossed, not here in this region at all, but it has in the past in Asia crossed to humans. It also affects our livestock and can cause a lot of problems there. So we're having issues with that right now. It's here locally in Utah. Poaching, of course, we're constantly talking with law enforcement about areas that we're seeing birds coming out of, and when we see gunshot wounds and things like that, we report those kinds of items. So rehabilitation, flying. This is Crash, a golden eagle that went through a semi-truck window, and how he didn't break a bone, we do not know, but he was eventually released back into the wild. Rehabilitation gets us to education, and if everything works out well, then this is the outcome. to Willard Bay. She was a migrant from that winter. Released her in March, and we're pretty sure that that individual is very happy for rehabilitation. She went through quite a bit just to get to that point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Buz. We'll pass it over to Melissa now. Buz, are you able to stop sharing your screen, do you think?
I'm trying to figure, oh, that's what I got. I knew I had to do something. Let's see, stop sharing. There we go.
Great.
Well, the eagle isn't the only one who is grateful for rehabilitation, Buz. We at Hawkwatch are also really grateful for the work that you do at the Northern Wildlife. I can't say it. It's long. Northern Utah Wildlife Rehabilitation Center of Northern Utah. There we go. And almost all the birds we have at Hawkwatch came from Buz and their organization and all the efforts that they do. Like he mentioned, all of our birds are not releasable for one reason or another. And so I thought I'd share with you one of our I don't want to say favorite because they're all our favorites, but one of our crowd favorite birds from your organization. This is Katori, and he is a great horned owl. I'm just giving him a little mist to keep him cool. He lives outdoors, so any coming inside, even just for a little bit, can be a little warm for him. And I'm going to try and get him a little bit bigger in the camera here, because you want to look at him more than you want to look at me, I'm sure. So Katori has actually been with us at Hawkwatch for 12 years, which is amazing to think about. And he came to the rehabbers at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center of Northern Utah when he was just a baby. So Buz mentioned human impacts, and we talk about a lot how humans do a lot of things that can be challenging for birds and for raptors and nature, but we're also the only species that tries to rectify our mistakes and tries to fix things and be helpful to other species. That's pretty rare in nature. So I think that Katori is a good example of someone who could have made a little bit better choice if they had a little bit more education, like what we've talked about. So somebody found Katori near a hiking trail when he was a baby. He was out of the nest. It's not unusual for young birds to leave the nest when they're learning how to fly. It's called fledging. And it's a pretty common practice for these birds to end up on the ground, just like a human child that's learning how to walk. They can't always just jump up and fly away perfectly on the first attempt. If you Google, you can find images, little owls that are fledging, climbing back up the tree using their talons and their beaks to get back into the nest, or sometimes mom and dad can help them. And even if they kind of stay around on the ground, usually the parents are nearby kind of watching and helping them out. So one of the calls we get a lot here at Hawkwatch is, I found a bird, a baby bird, and I don't know what to do. And the thing that we tell them is, if it's ever possible to, if they have their adult looking feathers, like they look like an adult bird almost, then they're fledging, and really the best thing is to leave them alone and let mom and dad take care of them, because bird parents are much better parents than humans. Now, if that baby is near a nest that you can reach, it's okay to just pick the baby up and put it back in the nest. It's kind of a myth that a bird will smell the human on the baby and abandon it. Great horned owls like Katori will eat skunks in the wild, so we can be pretty sure that their sense of smell is actually not that strongly developed. So they're not going to smell you getting the baby back to the nest and then leaving the area so that the parents can take care of it is always the best option. But unfortunately, this individual who found Katori, they didn't know about that. Like I said, they maybe could have benefited from a little bit more education, and that's why Katori has been such a great asset, because we can use him to talk about this very topic. So they picked him up, and they did the right thing by taking him to a wildlife rehabilitator. So even though the initial choice was a little misguided. The follow-up behavior was correct. They did the right thing. They took him to the people who could actually help him. And odds are, I know that at your center, Buz, you guys have rehabilitated many great horned owls, and they have successfully gone on to live in the wild and be wild birds. And so it was highly likely that that would have happened with Katori, except that he got an eye infection while he was still in human care. And that necessitated treatment multiple times a day. So he had to get eye drops put in by humans. And Buz mentioned imprinting, which is a process where these young birds kind of learn how to be in the world. And if they spend that really important time in the care of humans and too much time around humans, then a lot of times they can end up becoming what we call imprinted. It doesn't mean that he thinks he's a human. He doesn't think that I'm an owl, but he didn't really learn the owl skills that are essential for him to survive in the wild. So Katori doesn't really know how to hunt. He began to associate humans with food, and because of that, he never really got that drive to get food for himself. So if we were to release him now, like Buz said, it would be illegal, number one. And number two, he probably wouldn't survive because he wouldn't know how to hunt and get his own food. So he is reliant on us. And like I mentioned, he's been with us for 12 years and will be with us for the rest of his life, which he could easily live another 12 years or more. And we're happy to take care of him here at Hawkwatch. And we have a permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that makes that possible. So we have what's called a special use education permit. And Katori's job, just like my job, is to go and talk to people about these birds. And so, like Buz mentioned, education is really important. We can see, particularly in Katori's case, a little education could have made a huge difference to that animal. So rehabilitation and education are both really important tools because we do want to reduce that human impact that we have on wildlife. So Katori is an ambassador. We call him a Raptor ambassador. And as part of his permit, he actually has to do education programs. And so I consider him my coworker and a friend, as much as a bird can be a friend to a human. And we work together to help people learn how they can more safely interact with wildlife and reduce the impacts they have on them. And I really appreciate all the things that Buz said today, because a lot of the things he talked about are really simple things that any of us can do. We can all make choices about how we use pest control products. We can think about the things that we're putting in the environment in our yards where wildlife live and share that space with us. So I encourage all of you to follow his advice and to, get to know who your local wildlife neighbors are and how you can best help them in the place where you live. And so I know we're just about out of time, so I'm just going to wrap it up here and let everybody know that we really appreciate the work that wildlife rehabilitators do. And please always consult with them if you find yourself in a situation with a wild animal that may be injured or sick, because they really are the best equipped to tell you how to best care for that animal, or how they can best care for that animal. So we encourage everybody to do their research, do their homework, learn about your wild neighbors, and just keep exploring our natural world. Thank you.
All right, so we have a few questions that we'll get through really quick. So the first question is, do birds that are highly injured and spend a lot of time in rehab before being released show a loss of social skills or instinct? Is there a point at which a bird cannot reintegrate?
Guess is that for me?
Yeah.
Okay. It depends upon individuals. It depends upon the age when they came in. Adults, we rarely have a problem with that. First of all, we are limited to a certain number of months for any bird, and actually for mammals by the state also. And if we can't get them back out in the wild or come up with a prognosis that they need to go to education within that limited amount of time, we have to specifically ask for an extension for that individual, and it has to be a good one because they don't typically do those. So Yeah, if it's an adult that's been out there, knows how to fend for itself and hunt for itself and find food and things like that, we don't usually have a problem with that. But there are younger individuals that, especially first year birds, there is a point in time where you can tell that it's probably not safe putting them back out.
Right, we have another question from Rachel asking, what suggestions do you have for someone with a yard to create a safe environment for birds and other animals? And do you have any suggestions for alternative fertilizers that don't harm birds?
Well, the only place I use fertilizers anymore is in my vegetable garden, and they're all organic and placed right there at the roots, and I don't put them anywhere else. Mother Nature gives us plenty of fertilizer. I do not pick up my grass clippings. It's all mulched and left down, which adds nitrogen back to the grass. And most of my grass is no longer that pretty green stuff. It's got a lot of dandelions in it right now. The honeybees are loving it. But probably the most important thing this time of year, we've already got several sets of house finch babies in, and it's because people are now deciding to go out and trim their trees and trim their bushes, and these birds are already laying eggs and raising young, and it's just the wrong time to do that. Let them have a little bit and do your trimming in the fall. Normally our winters are quite calm here in Utah from my standpoint, and you can do a lot of tree trimming and cleaning up during those time periods, even though it's not something that people tend to want to do. But yeah, timing is a big issue.
Can I jump in on that one too? I would say in general, less is more when it comes to your yard. Like Buzz was saying, leave things a little wilder, leave lower branches towards the ground so animals have a place to shelter. That's especially important if you have like cats roaming in your neighborhood. If there's wild domestic pets that are hunting these wild animals, the more places they have for shelter, the better. And the other thing is, if you transition your yard from a grass-based landscape to a more native plant-based landscape, you don't need fertilizers, and you don't even need very much water. So if you you can start slow by maybe doing your park strip or like a side yard, but even transitioning part of your yard away from grass towards native plants, perennials, and bushes will not only increase the wildlife that can use your yard, because those are natural food and shelter sources for them. It also reduces your water bill, your impact on the environment, and your need for any sort of chemical fertilizers or pesticides. These plants have evolved to live in this ecosystem where we are, so they're much better at surviving here without human intervention.
That was much better said.
All right, so since we're a little over, I'm just going to do one more question. So I have someone asking, Buzz, are you able to find homes for all potential education birds, or are there times when you have to euthanize a bird because it can't be released and you can't find an education home?
Yeah, by law, if we cannot do one of the first two, we must euthanize. And the problem here is, take your great horned owl, for instance. You would think they would be easy to find education homes for any great horned owl that could not be released, but that is not the fact. They are actually quite common. And so unless you have a great horned owl you spent many hours on training to the glove, for some educator out there who wants pre-trained animals, they're really hard to find homes for, and that's really sad. Red-tailed hawks, another species, they're just so common. If they're not already a perfect education animal, people will go on to the next one that has some training or something like that. And then when you get into passerines and things like that, the songbirds, there's very little, there are very few places that deal with passerines, very few zoos and aviaries that deal with the common passerines that we have here in Utah. And so they're harder to find homes for than your eagles and other raptors and things like that.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much, Buz, for joining us, and Melissa and Katori. So as I said, we recorded this, so you can watch it again on our YouTube channel. Also, for local folks, I just wanted to let you know that on Saturday from 11 to 1, we are having an open house at the Hawkwatch offices. So you can come meet some of our Raptor ambassadors in person, specifically our newest ambassador, Aurora, the Swainson's Hawk.
Thank
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Bye.
good one.